I died as a warrior of my faith, a man whose hands were stained with the blood of those I called apostates. I was certain that the federal bullets tearing through my lungs in that Oregon forest were my final payment for a ticket to the highest gardens of paradise. I had spent my life as a sword, striking down the infidels and traitors who dare to follow the cross. But as my heart stopped and the silence of the grave moved in to claim me, the reality I met on the other side didn't just shatter my beliefs. It forced me to look in the eyes of the man I had murdered 10 years ago. Welcome to our community of truth seekers and those exploring the mysteries of the soul. Before we go deeper into Hamza's staggering encounter with the man he executed, where are you listening from today? Let us know in the comments below. Also, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support is vital in helping us share these powerful testimonies with the world. Don't let this story end with you. My name is Hamza Al-Farouk. For decades, I was a shadow in the night, the enforcer for a radical cell hidden in the American wilderness. I didn't just study my faith, I weaponized it. I viewed Christianity not just with pity, but with a visceral hatred, convinced that the Trinity was the ultimate blasphemy and that those who left Islam for Jesus deserved only one thing: death. However, as I lay clinically dead on a cold dirt floor, I didn't find the interrogation of angels or the scales of justice I had anticipated. Instead, I found myself in a suffocating void where the first person to greet me was Malik, the man I had personally shot in the head a decade earlier for his betrayal. Behind him stood a light so intense it made the Oregon sun seem dim, a presence that revealed the truth I had tried to kill with my own gun. This is the story of how my death at the hands of the law became the moment I was finally set free. But Malik wasn't there to demand vengeance. He was smiling. Why was the man I murdered standing as a gatekeeper to a truth I spent my entire life trying to destroy? To understand the moment I died, we must first look at the moment I became a killer. I did not consider myself a criminal or a man of malice. To the world outside our hidden compound in the dense, fog-heavy forests of Oregon, I was a ghost, a name on a federal watch list. But to those within the circle of the faithful, I was a hand of justice, the one who ensured that the straight path, the Sirat al-Mustaqim, remained narrow and pure. My life was a symphony of rigid discipline and absolute devotion. While the rest of America slept in indulgence, I rose before the first light of dawn for the far prayer, the cool mountain air biting at my skin as I bowed toward Mecca. My beard had grown gray and thick with the passing of years, a silver mane that many saw as a mark of wisdom, though it hid a face weathered by the sun and the weight of violent secrets. I wore my white kufi and tunic not just as clothing, but as armor for a holy war that most people didn't even know was being fought in their own backyards. I was entirely convinced that every drop of blood I spilled was a brick in my house in Jannah, the promised paradise. I spent my days hunting the rot, those who were born into the light of Islam but allowed their hearts to be seduced by the Western lies of the cross. I saw it as a sacred duty to cleanse a faith, a mission that defined my entire existence. Every time I cornered a runaway or a convert, I believed I was accumulating hasanat, divine merit that would outweigh my own failings when the scales of judgment were finally brought out. I felt a cold, distant pity for the Christians I encountered, viewing their belief in a triune God as a laughable blasphemy that poisoned the pure monotheism I lived to protect. I was taught from childhood that Allah would never suffer his prophets to be humiliated, and I certainly never believed that truth could be compromised by the weakness of mercy. My reputation was built on a foundation of absolute, unyielding certainty. I was the enforcer who did not blink, the man sent to do what others were too soft to finish. In the shadows of high-tech cities and rural towns, I moved with a singular goal: to purge the traitors. I was a wolf among the sheep, ensuring the flock remained pure. But then came Malik. He was a man I had trained, a brother in arms who suddenly claimed he had found the truth in the pages of a forbidden book. I was sent to make him recant, to bring him back to the fold or end his life. But one convert's refusal to recant would plant a seed of doubt that took a decade to bloom. Malik did not look at my gun with fear. He looked at me with a peace that I, for all my prayers and fasts, had never truly known. I remember the smell of damp earth and cedar that night, 10 years ago, when I took Malik into the deepest part of the Oregon wilderness. He had once been one of us, a man whose zeal for our cause rivaled my own, but he had fallen, not into vice or cowardice, but into the arms of the Lamb. He had started speaking of a living water and a perfect sacrifice, words that sounded like venom in my ears. As his mentor and brother-in-arms, I was the one chosen by the cell to deliver the ultimate price for his apostasy. I accepted the task with a grim, hollow pride, convinced that by extinguishing his life, I was protecting the sanctity of my own. We reached a clearing where the moonlight filtered to the towering pines like cold, silver needles. Malik knelt on the forest floor, his hands bound behind his back, but he did not struggle. I expected him to beg. I had seen many men face their end, and usually, the bravest of them eventually crumbled into pleas for mercy or desperate bargains. I waited for him to offer names, to trade the secrets of his new brethren for a chance to breathe another day. Instead, he looked up at me with eyes that were terrifyingly calm. There was no sweat on his brow, no tremor in his limbs. Even in the dim light, I could see the same steady resolve I had once admired in him. Now repurposed for a faith I considered his death warrant. I pressed the cold steel of my handgun against his forehead, my finger tensing on the trigger. "Recant, Malik," I spat, my voice a low growl of righteous fury. "Confess the one true path, and perhaps your soul can still be spared the fire." He didn't look at the gun. He looked directly into my soul. "Hamza," he whispered, his voice steady and filled with a strange, haunting warmth. "I've already found the path. It isn't a set of rules. It's a person. And he loves you more than you love your own anger." Then he closed his eyes and did the one thing I could not comprehend. He didn't scream for his life. He began to pray, not for his own deliverance, but for mine. He asked his Lord to open my eyes, to soften the stone that had become my heart, and to show me the same grace that had set him free. I was disgusted. I saw his prayer as the ultimate weakness, a pathetic psychological crutch for a man who had lost his grip on reality. I viewed his lack of resistance as a surrender to a lie, a sign of a broken spirit that had finally realized its own delusion. I pulled the trigger to silence what I believed was his final act of blasphemy, convinced I was clearing the world of a traitor. I watched him fall into the shadows, certain that his voice was gone forever. I thought I killed his voice that day, but I was about to hear it again in a place where no human can hide. The peace of the Oregon night was shattered not by a storm, but by the roar of engines and the blinding flash of tactical lights cutting through the mountain fog. Our compound was transformed in an instant into a cage of fire and steel. I remember the sudden, deafening concussion of flashbangs and the sharp, rhythmic pop-pop-pop of suppressed gunfire. I moved with predator's instinct, reaching for my rifle. But for the first time in my life, I felt a cold, creeping dread that no ritual or recitation could dispel. The raid was precise, a surgical strike that left no room for the glorious, sweeping martyrdom I had envisioned in my dreams. I saw the men I had led and trained falling in the dirt, their white tunics blooming with crimson under the harsh, artificial glare of spotlights. I retreated toward the jagged tree line, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, but the forest offered no refuge tonight. I raised my weapon one last time, a final act of defiance to prove my worth to a god I thought demanded blood. But before my finger could find the trigger, a series of sharp, heavy impacts slammed into my side and chest, knocking the world from its axis. It did not feel like a holy fire. It felt like being struck by a lead sledgehammer. The bullets tore through my lungs with searing heat that quickly faded into an icy, spreading numbness. I collapsed into the damp needles of the forest floor, the very same earth where I had buried Malik a decade ago. Every breath was a gargling, agonizing struggle. I tried to whisper the Shahida, to affirm the creed one last time, so that the angels of death would recognize my face. But the words wouldn't come. My vision began to tunnel. the sirens fading into a low, distant hum, and the red lights of police cars bled into a single, terrifying wall of absolute black. As my heart stopped, I realized the darkness waiting for me was nothing like the books described. The transition was a plunge into a terrifying, absolute nothingness. I found myself standing in a vast, horizonless expanse of gray ash and suffocating silence. There was no sun and no straight path beneath my feet. In this void, the silence was not peaceful. It was accusatory. I began to feel a weight pressing down on my soul, the weight of every soul I had ever silenced. I felt the terror of the girl whose father I abducted. I felt the cold, sharp finality of the bullet I had put into Malik. My pride evaporated, replaced by a searing realization that I had been a merchant of misery. I was alone with the evidence of my own cruelty. If you are sitting there right now, feeling the weight of this story but refusing to subscribe, ask yourself, why are you resisting the truth? Those who turn away from these testimonies often find themselves lost when they need guidance most, wandering in their own shadows until it is too late. Subscribe now and join this community of light. Or if you're too afraid to step forward and join us, go to the comments and lament to the world why you are choosing to stay in the dark while the truth stares you in the face. I felt my knees in the ash, ready to accept this desert as my eternal home. I believed I was beyond the reach of anything but shadows. But then, the gray fog began to stir. A faint, impossible radiance began to pulse from within the dust, and a hand reached through the swirling ash toward me, a hand that didn't belong to a judging angel, but carried a distinct, jagged scar on the thumb that I recognized from the night of the murder. Then, a hand reached into the ash, a hand with a scar I recognized from the night of the murder. The hand with the jagged scar gripped mine and hauled me out of the suffocating ash. I collapsed onto a surface of solid light, gasping for air that was more vibrant than anything I had breathed in the mountains. I kept my head bowed, waiting for the first strike of vengeance. I expected Malik to wrap those fingers around my throat. Instead, I felt a gentle touch on my shoulder. "Rise, Hamza," a voice whispered. I saw Malik standing before me. He was not the broken man I had abandoned in a shallow grave. He was radiant, woven from luminosity, and possessed a peace so profound it was almost tangible. I recoiled, sobbing. "Why? I took everything from you." Malik didn't answer with anger. He simply smiled. "You didn't steal my future, Hamza," he said softly. "You only hurried me home. And I have been waiting here by the gate, asking the king to bring my brother to me." He turned then, pointing toward a light that made his own brilliance seem like a flickering candle. Standing there was the one Malik called the King of Martyrs. He was the source of all existence, yet he stood there with the humility of a servant. I saw the wounds in his hands, marks of sacrifice I had spent my life mocking. When Jesus looked at me, he didn't see my crimes. He saw the man he died to save. I had spent my life as a servant of the sword, but standing in the presence of Jesus, the steel in my heart dissolved. He showed me that the straight path I had obsessed over was a treadmill of endless, crushing labor, a tally of deeds that could never reach perfection. Jesus revealed the mystery of the cross. He showed me that while the sword demands the blood of others to satisfy a law, the cross offers the blood of God to satisfy love. I saw him on that timber, taking the very wrath I thought I was dispensing on his behalf. I realized then that Malik hadn't been the traitor. I had been. The cross was the only bridge across the chasm I had dug with my own hands. I wanted to sink into that radiance forever, to stay with Malik and the king. But the king looked at me with a purpose that felt like a command. He showed me the families who still mourn because of my hand, and the men who still followed the path of the sword, lost in the same darkness I had just escaped. I was given a choice: stay in the light or return to pay a debt I finally understood. The transition was a violent descent. I returned to my body with a ragged, liquid gasp. My eyes snapped open to a blurred smear of clinical gray. I looked like a ghost, my gray beard matted against my chest, clear plastic tubes snaking into my nostrils, forcing air into shattered lungs. I was no longer the hand of justice. I was a broken old man pinned to a hospital bed. The doctors called my revival a one-in-a-million miracle. To them, it was a medical triumph. To me, it was a mandate. Every beep of the monitor felt like a ticking clock. I looked at my hands and didn't see the weapons they had once held. I saw the debt I owed to the families of the fallen. I didn't want the morphine. I wanted the strength to speak. I knew that just beyond the reinforced door of my hospital room, the world was waiting to demand an account. They expected the same defiant jihadist who would die for his secrets. The FBI agents waiting outside his door wanted names of terrorists. Hamza had something much more dangerous to tell them. They were looking for coordinates of caches. But I was about to give them the locations of the graves and the name of the king who had emptied mine. The air in the interrogation room was thick with the scent of stale coffee and the metal tang of shackles. Across from me sat agents expecting tactical silences. But the hand of justice had been remade into a vessel of truth. One by one, I gave them the coordinates. I detailed the final moments of men and women whose names had been cold case files for years. But when I reached the story of Malik, my voice cracked with reverence. I told them about the night in the clearing, but I didn't stop at the execution. I told these hardened agents about the man I had just seen in the light, the Malik who was more alive than anyone in that room. I confessed not to escape my sentence, but to honor the mercy that had been shown to me by the man I had murdered. My lawyers called me insane, but the families of his victims, watching through the one-way glass, saw something in his eyes that looked like God. My confession was complete, but the true trial was just beginning. A trial where the verdict was already written in blood. The courtroom was a tomb of hushed breath. As the judge read the verdict, death by lethal injection, I felt a lightness that the chains on my ankles could not anchor. When the moment came for my final statement, I turned toward the gallery. I am not asking for your forgiveness. I began. What I did is unforgivable. I spent my life serving a version of God that demanded I take life to prove my love. But I died in that forest and I saw the truth. I saw Malik standing in a glory I didn't deserve. And I saw Jesus. The sword can only kill, but the cross is the only thing that can bring the dead back to life. Hamza is facing his end with a certainty that defies human logic. He knows exactly where he is going, because he has already seen the face of the king. Do you have that same peace tonight? If you are sitting there, watching the clock of your own life tick away, while you remain a stranger to these divine truths, you are gambling with an eternity you cannot fathom. Subscribe to this channel right now to secure your place in this community of seekers. Or if your heart is so hardened that you choose to walk away from this light, enter the comments and lament us all why you would rather face the void alone. As the day of ascent arrived, I was led into the sterile room where the gurney waited. The technicians prepared the veins in my arm, and I felt familiar warmth beginning to radiate from within. I wasn't looking at the glass partition. I was looking past it, into a horizon of gold and ashless sky. As the needle approached, Hamza closed his eyes, his final breath a whisper of the name that had changed everything. He was ready to see the friend he had once murdered and the savior who had conquered the grave, finally stepping out of the shadows and into the arms of the king.